Greetings and salutations. I hope this video finds you doing well. It's been a little while since I have posted something here on the channel, so I figured it was about time, and I've kind of been waiting for Canonical to go ahead and release the path to an in-place upgrade of Ubuntu so you can upgrade from 2204 to 2404, and it's taken quite some time. That's what we're going to do in this video. I have a little computer that I installed Ubuntu Server on a long time ago. I did that to make a video about it and also to teach myself how to work with Ubuntu Server and learn a bit more about it. And I believe the very first thing that I installed on this was Ubuntu Server 1804. The machine is an Asus EEE PC that somebody donated to Easy Linux years ago. And these are tiny little netbook machines, and they are from the aughts. And from what I could gather, I did a tiny bit of research before doing this video. They were originally released running Windows XP Home. They have a tiny dual-core Atom processor. I think this one has 2 gigabytes of memory in it, and it's got integrated graphics, and it's got sound. I mean, it's a full little laptop, but it's just tiny. It's back when netbooks were a thing. I've never seen this thing run Windows XP, so I have no idea what the performance was like, but I can tell you that running any Linux distribution with a desktop is painfully slow, and it doesn't even matter if you use one of the super lightweight Linuxes. As long as it has to run a desktop, oh my goodness, you don't want to use this thing. And it did run a desktop for a while, but then I decided to go ahead and just make it a server. So now it lives under an end table in the living room, and it runs with the lid closed most of the time, and it's just a file server. There's no special software on this little machine at all. The only reason it exists is so I can use SSH and rsync to put files on it and help to sync files across the entire network, and that's it. So if I lose this machine, I don't care, because what we're going to do in this video is not the way you're supposed to do this. This is not a how-to video, okay? This is just me doing something stupid. So yeah, keep that in mind if you're going to hang out and watch this thing, that this is not really technically the way you should do this. You should never update a remote server through SSH, because if something goes wrong and it doesn't boot back up, then guess what? You can't get to it. Especially if you don't have access to the machine directly, like you're not in a data center or it's not part of your own setup, or if it's something that's running in the cloud and you don't have access to the console for the account, which I actually do not have access to one of the servers that runs for the radio station. And recently I upgraded it doing exactly what I'm doing here from Ubuntu 2004 to 2204. But that was a proven upgrade, and this is a different deal because we're going to go from 2204 to 2404, and we've been waiting quite some time for the ability to do this. Ubuntu 2404 has been, without a doubt, the buggiest long-term support release of Ubuntu that I have seen probably since I started fooling around with Linux seriously in 2008. I have never seen anything quite like it. And I have tried to get it running in a virtual environment several times, and it crashed so much that I couldn't do anything with it with VirtualBox. I finally got to a point where, yes, I could run it, and enough updates were made that now it's almost stable. When Linux Mint 22 came out not too long ago, I installed that, and it was the same deal. It was crashing all over the place, so that's why I haven't done any videos about it, because you're sitting here and you're talking about it, and then it just freezes and it doesn't work. And no, I have not run it on any hardware yet, and I don't think that I'm going to be doing upgrades to Ubuntu 2404 on my laptops. I've got 2 laptops in the house that run 2204 vanilla Ubuntu right now, and I'm not really excited about it, so that will wait a while. I might decide to do it much later on, but not now. But this little server, I don't care, and it's become sort of a thing. Every time a new Ubuntu stable release comes out, the long-term support release, I just upgrade it in place. So that's what we're going to do. So let's get started. Okay, let's full screen this terminal, and I did that with F11. Control and Shift will make the font bigger. And for anybody out there who is aspiring to do Linux-related videos on YouTube, might I remind you that when you show terminals and text editors and things like that, if you happen to have one of them big high-res 4K displays, make sure that you make your fonts really, really big for the rest of us out here who are watching on lower resolution devices. Even on a 4K TV from across the room, it's going to be hard to make out dinky-winky little fonts. But a lot of people don't think about that, and so you come across these videos where somebody says, hey, I'm going to show you how to do this, and then you can't see a thing they're doing. So keep that in mind. All right, we're looking at my local machine that I'm recording this on, which is my main Franken PC here, kind of a custom build I picked up. And it has, what does this machine have in it? It has an AMD Ryzen processor in it, 32 gigabytes of RAM, a whole bunch of SSDs. It's a pretty cool machine. And it's running Linux Mint Debian Edition FE 6, which I absolutely love. Okay, and we're going to use that to log into the little EEE we've been talking about. And it is up and running. And as you can see right here, look at this. There's a little thing that has popped up since yesterday that says now we can do an upgrade. So that's exactly what we're going to do. I have read no release notes. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm going to type in that command. And for those of you who are wondering, it is currently Friday, August the 30th, and it's about 12:20 in the morning as of when we logged in there. So the upgrade path was released by Canonical just yesterday. So here we go. So they say that all we have to do is to do release upgrade, but I am going to do one thing before I do that. What you want to do is just make sure that your machine is up to date, and this one should be. So make sure that you have all the latest stuff. And this machine, like I said, is kind of slow. It takes its time. This video is going to run for a while. Pause it and grab a beverage. This is the reason why I turned this machine into just a file server, because it is a little bit slow. And this is slower than usual. Did I crash it just trying to update the apt cache here? No, it just takes its time. See, it's just working in the background. So this is about the pace we're going to go, okay? Just so you know. But we can sit here and chat about all kinds of stuff. And it says there is something up here. Okay. Sudo apt dist upgrade is the command we're going to use. And it's going to go out, and whatever there is that needs to be updated, it'll be updated. Go ahead. Well, it didn't do anything. Oh, it did. Whatever it did. All right. Not much there. Okay, now what was it that we were supposed to do? Let me make sure I get this right, because typing while I'm recording always messes me up. As a matter of fact, I'll even copy their exact command, so there's no chance that I can mess this up. Here we go. It says, checking for a new Ubuntu release. Oh, goody. Tried to clear the screen. It didn't like that. It says, let's see. It says you can find out more about Ubuntu. What is this thing doing? I'm all the way down here. I think I made it mad, y'all. Alright, let's see where we're at here. The Ubuntu team is proud to announce Ubuntu 24.04 OS. And this is the Noble Numbat, whatever that is. And this is all the stuff about it here. Okay, it doesn't fit the whole screen, guys. It should be, you know, done in pages. That was a little confusing. Here we go. The script is running to upgrade this machine. It says it's reading cache. Alright, we'll just sit back and watch. This session appears to be running under SSH. It is not recommended to perform an upgrade over SSH currently because in case of failure, it's harder to recover. Yes, I don't care. I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. We talked about that at the beginning of the video. Okay. We'll just do enter. That's all I'm going to do is accept the defaults. That's all I usually do on these things. I heard the other day, and I only heard it from one source, I have not confirmed it, that the Linux desktop share is up to almost 5%. People have been flocking to Linux lately. And I think that is because of Microsoft doing the artificial end of life of Windows 10, which is something that a lot of businesses and a lot of people who have small setups of one way or the other, they're going to find that to be difficult to deal with because unless you're real good at hacking the machine and getting Windows 11 to run on a machine that it doesn't want to, and I still don't know how to do that myself, that's going to be an issue. So there are many people out there who are just saying, okay, I think it's time to do Linux. And I think that's cool. Although recently Windows 11 has come into my life. The last video about Linux I posted was about the PC that borked itself that my son was using to play games, and we put Ubuntu on it. That machine died shortly after I did that video. It ran another 2 weeks and then it just quit working. I think what happened was, because of the nature of how it was put together, it just burned itself up. There was really no airflow inside the case. They bought it from this company that took little point of sale desktop PCs and tried to hop them up so they would be able to play games and sold them as gaming PCs. Well, the problem with that, of course, is the fact that these little guys were never intended to do that. So anyway, that machine just completely died. So I ended up getting him another machine, and I got a refurbished Lenovo ThinkStation. Boy, what a nice machine. And it came with Windows 11 on it. And so that was my first contact with Windows 11. And it went well. It's up and running. He can play Steam games. That's all he cares about is Steam games. And he wants to be able to run Discord and listen to Spotify and just a few little things like that. He is very good with computers. Of course, he lived with me all of his life, so he picked up some stuff. But he also has his entire computing experience up in the cloud. So if anything goes wrong, he can just swap out machines, log in on another, and he's gone. He uses all the Google services and just everything that you can think of. So he really doesn't even have any local files, although he's got photos and documents and things, but they all just live in the cloud somewhere. That's the way he chooses to do it. So, and we're at the same place we were before here, where this thing takes a while to get itself together. In case you're wondering why there has been no change on the screen, when I did the update earlier, you saw exactly the same thing happen here. This just takes a while to do these sorts of operations on this machine. If we do manage to get it rebooted, I will show you the resources that we're working with here. You're calculating the changes, it says here. I did this the other day, well, not the other day, it's been, how long ago? Couple 3 months back, I think. I did this on an Ubuntu instance that was running on Azure. And it's the one that we use for the radio station. I think I mentioned it earlier. And the only reason that that exists, it's an FTP server. It's all it does. We just send files to it, and then they get bounced to where they need to go. And that machine I upgraded in place, and it was really slick. It was actually quite quick. I was kind of amazed at how well it went. So let's see how this experience goes. Yeah, but back to what I was talking about Linux, the desktop, and that almost making 5%. I remember 10 years ago when I was really militant about Linux, when I was running the Easy Linux project. Let's see, what are we going to do? I want to continue. Yes, to continue. I don't care about the details. I remember saying years and years ago that if we ever get to a point where Linux has 5% of the desktop share, that'll give us real power with the software and hardware people, because they're going to have to pay attention to us. Because I don't know, I mean, I don't pay a lot of attention to those numbers, desktop share anyway, because they're kind of jacked up. But 5% of the total number of desktops in the world is not an insignificant number of people. And so therefore the hardware and software people do have to pay attention to that and cater to that audience. At least I should hope so. Linux as an operating system has come along in incredible ways, and it's so stable, and it's so reliable, and it's so easy to use once you learn the differences. But I think software-wise is where it's kind of lacking, the software development itself. And if you disagree with me, that's fine. Put it down in the comments, because, you know, I live in my own little world when it comes to computing these days. I have a computer that I use for the radio station, which runs Windows 10, and I do all of my work for that. I record my show every day on it, and I use that to produce commercials and manage the music library at the radio station, and that's all it does. So I don't use any other software other than what I use, which is Adobe Audition and the specialized software that we use for the radio station, which is a system called Wide Orbit. And we're actually even running a very old version of that. We're running 4.0, which isn't perfect, but it's stable. And so I don't really sit here and look at all the new software and everything that's coming along. And ever since the Easy Linux project went away and I got rid of that, and we don't have the Easy Linux webpage, I mean, I really have just not paid a great deal of attention to what's going on. And just busy doing other stuff. But still interested. I follow what's going on in the community. Pre-configuring packages. I do like the fact that they're letting me do this over SSH, even though it's not recommended. I tried to do an in-place upgrade of Linux Mint 21 to 22, and I was doing it in a virtual environment. I had a virtual machine running, and the very first thing that was hard-coded into the upgrade process, it wanted to use time shift to create a full backup of the system. And in a virtual machine, I don't run time shift. And if you don't know what time shift is, you need to learn, because it's fantastic software and it comes standard in all Linux Mint. It's just there. And what it allows you to do is take snapshots of your operating system and should there be an emergency, you can roll back. Sort of like you used to be able to do in Windows. Can you do that now in Windows? I've never done it. I haven't done it in years. But back in the XP days, remember that? You messed up your system, and boy, I hope I could roll it back. Well, that's kind of what it does, and it's actually very reliable, and it's good software. I mean, if you're playing around with video drivers or something like that and it doesn't work right, you can just roll back to the way you were and everything's fine. But with this upgrade that I was trying to do, that was the first thing that they just absolutely hard-coded made you do. Like, no, we want you to have this. And it's like, guys, I'm doing testing in a virtual environment and running this software, which basically clones everything that is installed, doubling the size of the file system and all that other stuff, is not whatever. But I went ahead and did it, and it still didn't work. It crashed. And I don't blame Linux Mint for that. I blame Ubuntu. Because this has been one of the buggiest releases of Ubuntu that I've ever seen, 2404. And as I alluded to earlier, I don't think I'm going to be doing this on any of my laptops. I have two laptops, an old Dell and an HP. They're just about ancient. I think both of them are at least 10 years old at this point. And they run Ubuntu 2204, and they do what I want them to do. One of them lives in my music room, and the only reason it's there is to stream music and act as a secondary PC. If I'm stuck in there and I need to jump on and check for email or whatever, I can do it. That runs Ubuntu 2204. It's an old Inspiron, one of those Dell Studio machines. The other one is a little HP that Cindy uses. And she uses it to stream shows and do email and things like that. Very light work, and they run great on Ubuntu 2204 with the vanilla GNOME desktop. And yes, they do have the built-in Intel graphics. And no, there's not a problem with them. The machine that I use in the music room, the Dell, has 4 gigabytes of RAM in it, and the one that she uses has 8. So you can't push them too hard, but like I said, for light duty work like that, it's just fine. So I think we'll be moving to something else maybe. I'm not a big fan of what the GNOME project is doing, and I just don't like it. What is it, GNOME 42 that's in Ubuntu 2404? Yeah, I'm not sure whether I like that or not. But then again, after I do this, I'm most definitely going to be doing upgrades to my virtual machines. When all of this settles in, we'll see how that goes. I might change my mind. I have wont to do that on occasion. I do change my mind. Still preparing packages. Need restart is suspended. I guess so. You'd have to do that with SSH. We don't want to restart in the middle of an upgrade. We'll get her done, and then we'll do that. So for those of you who are not followers of the channel, about 5 years ago, a very good friend of mine bought the radio station that we worked for back in the 90s. And since he did that, I went back to radio broadcasting. And every day I do a radio show, Monday through Friday, 7 to midnight Eastern Time. And I'll put the link in the description to the video so you can go to our webpage and listen live if you want to. I don't get any extra money if you do that. It is not something that puts... I work for a radio station. You can listen to the radio station. The radio station is free to listen to. They make their money by playing commercials. I remember when I first started talking about that on YouTube, that I was doing this radio show. Somebody had posted, "Ooh, it's cringy that you're talking about your radio show." I'm like, why? I'm just telling you about things that I do that are not Linux related or audio related. Speaking of audio related, one of the last videos that I posted... Okay, hold on. What are we going to do here? I don't want to do... I'm going to keep... Let's do N. I want to keep the currently installed version of that configuration file. Always take that in that situation if you don't know what's going on. That gives you the least possibility of something not working when it boots up. Anyway, I posted a video a while back about CDs. You know, the other half of this channel is stuff about records and CDs and audio. It has been for years and years, and that's the way it is. And I was really surprised at how many people watched that video and responded to it. It seems there's a bit of a shift going on in the audio world where, you know, for years CD was a dirty word. Oh, I'm going to listen to vinyl records. And I kind of was like that for a little while when I was getting into it. But now I have this really kick-ass system set up, and I've got nice turntables, and I can't afford to buy records because it has become a hipster thing. Well, it has been for a while, but the prices are starting to catch up. And the thing is that you see a record that you want, and they're selling it somewhere, and it's absolute scratched up junk that you don't want to play on a high-end turntable to begin with, and they want like $15 for it. And I've been burnt too many times like that. And I've also had too many people that are not collectors who don't know how to grade a record will say that something is in very good condition or whatever, and they make it look authentic enough where you think that's, you know, they know what they're talking about, and then you actually get the record and you go, okay, you're an idiot. And of course you're burnt. You've already spent the money. And I don't really go, if I get something like that, I just kind of let it go, because a lot of the times I'm spending about the same amount of money I would spend for coffee at Starbucks. It's not really that big a deal. If you need the money that bad, you can have it. But still, there should be honesty in advertising. Learn how to grade records if you're going to be selling them on eBay and Discogs, okay? Actually look that up. There's a way to do that. So anyway, around the first of the year, I sort of kind of backed away from records and started collecting CDs, and I've been having a blast filling up holes in my collection. You can get them for dirt cheap if you want to, because people still think they're on the outs, but they really aren't. And there's also a lot of old farts out there who are keeling over, who had large collections, and then their families are putting them up on eBay to sell because they don't know what else to do with them. And so a lot of these people who are posting these things do not know what they're looking at. Like, for instance, I like very early CDs. I have a thing about CDs that were pressed in the early 80s when the format first came along. It was introduced officially in 1982 in Japan, but in the US and around the world they didn't start hitting until mid-83. And those early CDs were pressed in two plants, Sony in Japan and Polydor in West Germany. And those are the only two plants doing it. And so those are very special discs today. And I like collecting them. I've gotten several of the early ones. So yeah, that's what I've been doing audio-wise. I may do a review coming up audio-wise of some Sennheiser 650 headphones, which are very expensive, the HD 650. And probably the nicest pair of headphones that I have ever had, especially for that kind of price. So after I get those and spend some time with it, I'll do that. If that's something you're interested in, if you are also an audiophile type person, I'll be happy to hear your suggestions and comments. Say, yeah, I'd like to hear about the 650s, man. Because if people do that, it is so encouraging. Linux-related content still to come on the channel. I want to get into Linux Mint 22 as soon as it becomes more stable. You may see a video about that. Right now, I can run it for about 5 or 10 minutes in a virtual machine, and it just crashes, and I'm not putting it on hardware anywhere. Especially if it's that buggy. It's just, I'm not going to do it. And that's not Linux Mint's fault. That's the Ubuntu base causing that, because I also have Ubuntu 24.04 running in a virtual machine. And I mean, when I first installed this, which is like a day or two after it was originally released, I couldn't get the update part of the system to run, the software and updates where you set the updates and look for drivers and all that stuff. Because it's written in Python, and if you clicked on the icon, it just didn't run. But if you would fire it off from a terminal, then you would get the error message in the terminal. It turned out to have a really basic Python error in it that wouldn't allow it to display. And I was like, huh? And it took them about a week to fix that. But an update finally came down where I could get that to run. So it is what it is. You would not think that there are this many packages in a server release. Right? This is pretty bare bones. I mean, this is an extremely bare bones Ubuntu installation with only I think the only programs that I have installed are HTOP is installed, Midnight Commander is installed. I have the NetTools package in there to get ifconfig so I can run. I have several scripts that rely on ifconfig to figure out the current IP4 addresses, and so I have to have that installed on machines. And the IP program itself, I don't like that. It's very difficult to run grep with that and find things. And whereas good old ifconfig from a million years ago, it's very logical and it's easy to grep things from the output. And anyway, things do seem to be going along swimmingly here, though, which is making me happy. We have not run into any major issues. It hasn't stopped cold dead. You've got to be a Linux head if you have hung around this video this long. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I love SSH. I love doing things like this with SSH. I like old SSH, and I like SFTP for moving files around. That's such a fun one. I already mentioned Midnight Commander. I will show you that when we get to the end of this video, if we get it to boot, because I want to make sure it's still in the system and it doesn't end up being one of the packages that gets bumped out, because I love that one. That's kind of important to me. I like terminal-based stuff, especially when working with files. Moving files around. Instead of using graphic file managers, I will just use commands and wildcards to move things around. I go for that before I open up the file manager. Except I have been doing a lot of work in the file manager lately because I was talking earlier about CDs. When I get my original pressings, I have been ripping them into high bitrate MP3s to store in my digital music library, which I can stream and use Rhythmbox to listen to anywhere I am, right? And yes, I still do that. Because it's mine and I can, that's why. Anyway, when I'm working with the big library I have, I do use the file manager to do that, because then I can see exactly what I've got going on, and I don't want to delete things that I don't want to delete. It's like file system surgery doing those sorts of things. Would you like to see a video about that? Because I can show you my process that I've been doing lately. Is that something that anybody is interested in 2404? Would you like, or 2024, the year, not 2024, the operating system. Anyway, is that something anybody wants to see? Do they care? I don't know. I know I'm not the only person doing that, because I have talked to people who are still building music libraries. The problem with streaming is that it has proven itself to be extremely unreliable, right? Because you never know when they're going to pull a song that you like. You may have set up a playlist, and then half your playlist disappears because they decide that nobody wants to hear this song anymore, so they pull it down, or there's some sort of copyright dispute, or there's the artist wants more money, or that sort of thing, and then it goes poof. It's the same thing with streaming movies. It's not what it was cracked up to be. It's not like it's going to be there forever, right? So I think a lot of people are going back to physical media, or at least creating their own files that they can manage themselves, because if I have a CD or a DVD in my hand, or a Blu-ray disc, I don't have a Blu-ray player right now. I want one, but I don't have one. We'll get one somewhere down the road. But anyway, if I have it in my hand, you can't take it away from me. And CD has proven itself for music. As long as you take care of them little buggers, they'll last 40 years. I've got several that are 40 years old. Maybe even into the hundreds that are 40 years old. And yeah, you hear about things like CD rot and stuff like that. I think that I have had that happen to maybe one or two CDs, and it's actually only happens to CDs that were pressed in a particular plant in Britain. And I think I've had one or two that have developed a problem just from sitting, but it's extremely rare. Even the burned CDs have lasted quite a while. I have many burned CDs that are well over 20 years old at this point that actually play just fine. The trick with burnable CDs and storing them is to keep them away from light, to put them on a shelf and have them all squished together in a darker area of the house where there's no sunlight that can shine on them, because that's how they work. Is, of course, light triggers this photo sensitive layer to change colors, and that's what happens, right? You actually literally burn it. You get enough power to burn that little thing and change its color. Well, if the sun shines on that long enough, it'll do it in slow motion, and then your disc don't play no more. So you can't take a burnt CD and throw it up on the dashboard of your car, the sun shining in. It won't last very long. And many people did that and complained about it. Well, we've been doing this for quite some time here, so hopefully we're getting down toward some sort of end. I don't know, though. Like I said, this is a server. And all we're seeing right now, the only thing this is doing is changing the file versions. When you see over there, that's what that's doing. It is putting a new version over the old version. Another thing that you guys can put down in the comments that I would love to hear is what distributions of Linux that you're using these days. I love Linux Mint Debian Edition on this big machine that I'm doing this video on. It has been, so wonderful to work with. It does exactly what I need. And I do a lot of work on this machine. I use this machine to run Audacity a lot. I do a lot of audio recording. I do a lot of processing of audio on this machine. That's one thing. Of course, recording videos like this with Simple Screen Recorder. The other thing that I do a lot with this machine is a lot of word processing for the radio station, and a lot of research on the internet. So it's just my daily driver. Every day I get up and get into this machine, and I love it. And like I said, it's a Franken PC. I bought it from some guy at a computer shop in upstate New York who had built this machine, and it was just glorious. It's got a Seasonic processor in it. It's got a ECM motherboard. It's got a Ryzen 3400 set up there with the internal graphics, which is fine with me. 32 gigabytes of RAM, which is plenty. And then I put a whole bunch of SSDs in it. It's got an M2 drive on the board, which I have a terabyte. It's an Evo 970 Samsung, which is a nice drive. I'm only using 250 gigabytes of it, and I'm using it now as a boot disk. That's all it does. It'll last forever. And then I've got a bunch of other SSDs that I'm using for the home directory. And then I have another SSD in here that is just like a scratch drive. And it has virtual machines on it. And it is formatted with XFS instead of NT. What was said? Did I almost say NTFS? No, I meant EXT4. It's late, guys. The content of this video is just riveting, I know. Just want to hear me ramble on about computers and Linux. By the way, we've been doing this for... look, according to the clock, we've been doing this for well over a half hour. So yeah, it's taken a little time. I don't remember this taking that long the last time I did it. But it is still rocking and rolling. People are skipping through this video, man. That's what's happening. You guys are going, oh, come on, this is taking forever. You're just skipping. It's okay. It's all right. Go ahead. I get it, man. I remember years ago there was a guy on YouTube who thought it would be fun to set up a live stream and build a Gentoo install. And essentially just take a computer and set Gentoo up to install itself. And of course it builds all the packages and it takes forever and ever. And he was going to just point a camera at it, turn around and walk away and let it live stream. And of course this is like watching paint dry. And he said he had to take the stream down because in the comments people started talking, started bashing each other, and there was just this really nasty back and forth going on in the comments, right? And it was, I mean, it got really bad. This is on a YouTube live stream. So none of that exists anymore. We only found out about it later because, of course, he announced he was going to do it. And I was like, I will not be one of the people watching that. All right, we are installing new versions of config files into the etc directory under AppArmor. We are still setting up. These things are going faster now. I think we've done the bulk of the package base now. So this is just clean up and all that kind of stuff. Just seeing what's going on here myself. What kernel are we getting here? 6.8.0-41. So that's where we are. I think we were running kernel 5 something on this machine. I don't know. I didn't look. This is just the machine that runs in the corner. I know so many people in the Linux world that have a whole house full of computers, and they're doing, serving media files. I've got there's one guy that I follow, Open Source Tonight. Check his channel out, Vince. He's got like his entire phone system running on Raspberry Pis. It's crazy what Linux nerds get into and the things that you can do with it, and it's just amazing the way where there's a will, there's a way. If there's something that you want to do, or there's something that you geek out about, the software exists and the hardware is cheap. And all you have to do is learn how to use it. And it's yours. It's free. That's wonderful. I don't think, some people say, oh, Linux will go away. Open source is under attack. Well, I don't think that'll ever go away. It's too cool of an idea, man. Way too cool. I don't know what any of this stuff means. It's one thing about Ubuntu that they have always done. They provide an upgrade path in place. And it would be technically possible, if not for hardware restraints, to take like an original version of Ubuntu, one of the earlier versions, and just keep doing this until you got to the current version of Ubuntu. You could do it. You could upgrade your way all the way through the LTSs until you got to today, as long as the hardware would continue to run. The HP laptop I was talking about earlier that Cindy used, I know for a fact that I upgraded in place 1604 to 1804 to 2004 and to 2204. And then I replaced the hard drive in that machine, so that meant that I had to reinstall, because I went from an old spinner hard drive to an SSD, and you don't clone those. Always reinstall when you go upgrade to SSD, because of the alignment issues and things like that. You want to have that to be a fresh format. Anyway, I did that, so that kind of broke that chain, and because I had to reinstall the operating system. But if I hadn't have done that, and if I upgrade that machine to 2404, it would have been like just one install after another, one upgrade after another. And they've all worked for me. I used to be a big proponent years ago of nuke and pave, man. Every time a new update comes out, what you ought to do is erase everything, back up all your personal data, erase the drive, and start over. I'm not so much like that anymore. Probably in the last 5 years or so, I'm more like, oh, they have an upgrade path? That's fine. Let's see what happens. And if there's any problems, you can always fix it. But truthfully, I've not had any. I just let the system do its thing. I don't feel the need to control every little thing like I used to years ago. Now I kind of just let things run. I'm not big on theming computers. I don't want it to be just so. It's like, does it work? Can I get my work done? Good. I think that's a sign of maturity. One of the things that I used to do on this channel was a lot of upgrades, not upgrades, distro reviews. I did upgrades too. And the distro reviews were big. People watched them all the time. And the way I used to do it is I would reinstall the machine. I would slap another hard drive in it and install whatever I wanted to make a video about, and we would look at it that way, and I would say, okay, today I'm running thus and such. And so many people who watched those videos thought that I was just like this incredible distro hopper who couldn't figure out what kind of Linux I liked. They would say, if you just stick to one thing, it'll be all right. Why do you keep doing this? This, that, and the other thing. And it's like, they didn't get it. It's like, okay, I'm running a YouTube channel and I'm showing other people distributions of Linux, right? So then I started doing it in virtual machines, because then I figured people would understand, okay, well, he's doing it in a virtual machine. Apparently he's just showing it to us. And then people complain about that. Well, that's not really running the software. You need to be installing it on hardware to see what it's really doing. So you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. It's like, people are weird, man. You do one thing and do the other thing, and either way. But I don't do distro reviews anymore. It's one of the reasons I asked about distributions in the comments. What do you guys use these days? What do you like? I pay attention to what goes on with Debian, Linux Mint, and Ubuntu. And outside of that little sphere, I'm not terribly interested. All right, we're back to this again. And so what we want to do is put an N. So we're going to keep the currently installed version. The question that comes up a lot of times too is so many people run Ubuntu and depend on Ubuntu, and whether you like it or not, it's the king of the hill in the Linux world. And a lot of people who come to Linux, this is where they land first, is Ubuntu. And the question always rises, if there was no Ubuntu, what would you use? I have the answer to my question. That would be Linux Mint Debian Edition. Easy. No problem. Done. But a lot of people are still looking and trying to figure that out for themselves. Vince from Open Source Tonight is a big fan of Red Hat based kind of Linuxes. He likes RPM packages and all that stuff. And so he has been rocking Rocky Linux for a while. And we have different opposing views, so we talk about that all the time. I like that. I don't have to agree with somebody or do exactly what they do to respect their point of view and learn something from them. It is not a source of friction. It is a source of enlightenment because we can always help each other out. If this was the way the world ran, we'd all be okay. So one of the things about Ubuntu Server that I'm not too happy about is when you do an upgrade through SSH and you get the screen where it asks you what services to restart, and if it's changing the kernel, they feel it necessary to tell you that. Of course, you could put Ubuntu Pro on this, I think, and have where you don't need to upgrade, you don't need to restart when you upgrade the kernel. I don't want to go down that road as far as debating whether that's a good thing or not. I just don't. But I don't like the way it stops like that. And I guess if I dug around, I could figure out how to make it not do that. But I never have. So I just grunt and go on. Because when you're upgrading a server, really, it has to be, you're going to get to a place where if you're doing several of them, that you don't feel like stopping and analyzing what you're seeing on the screen. An upgrade should be relatively streamlined, unless it's the end of the world, like something is really going to break, then you can stop and yell at me. But other than that, leave me alone. I know there's going to be a different kernel. I know there's going to be an upgrade necessary, or a restart necessary, rather, after the upgrade. Did any of that make sense? I hope it did. Okay, we are going to denied execution of restart. That sounds kind of draconian, doesn't it? It wouldn't let me restart. Let's see, how long has this video been going? Oh, quite some time now. If you've hung around this long, man, you are a fan. Another thing you could put down in the comments if you're hanging out, because at this point you are a fan and you're a Linux head, is what YouTube channels do you watch to follow Linux and find out what's going on? Is there still a big YouTube Linux community like there used to be? I really literally don't pay that much attention anymore. It's true. Since Easy Linux went away, I just don't. And there are a few people that I see videos come along. I see Jay LaCroix's videos, Learn Linux TV, the Jupiter Broadcasting stuff. I still see that. There's a couple of other people I follow, but not as many as there used to be. Brian Lunduke is now posting on YouTube, stirring up controversy as usual. He likes to stir the pot. I don't agree with everything Brian says, but I kind of like to watch him sometimes. Okay. We're setting up all the software. New configuration files, man. I don't know, man. I'm thinking it might have taken less time to install it from scratch than to actually run this upgrade in place. Honestly, I really don't want to do that, and the reason why is because the last time that I did a from scratch install of Ubuntu Server was so long ago that I don't want to deal with configuring the network for a static IP address. As I recall, you have to write some YAML file or something like that. NetPlan, is that what they use in Ubuntu Server these days? Not a huge fan, to tell you the truth. All right, we're getting there. When you see kernel activity like that, that means you're getting down to the end of your upgrade. Yeah, so we've got the old 5.15 kernel installed and 6.8. Yeah, we're updating Grub now. This is usually down toward the end. Okay, we are now... Alright, we're generating interim FS. That takes a while on this machine. And it's just because it's an Atom processor. It is particularly slow. Which is, like I said, it's okay for serving files, but you do not want to run a desktop on this thing. Well, I clicked the browser, and I'm waiting for it to load, so I went in the kitchen, and I was able to fix myself a cup of tea and bake some cookies, and maybe by about 3 or 4 in the afternoon, I should be able to see what's going on. Kind of how it is. That's part of the fun of Linux, though, is keeping old junk running. I do have some new hot PCs now these days that I bought in the last few years, but all of these little laptops and this netbook and stuff, to me, that's fun. People try to get me into Raspberry Pis, and I know those are kind of cool and fun little devices, but if I got one, I don't think I'd ever use it. I just don't. Of course, a Raspberry Pi could do what this machine is doing, except for the storage. This machine has got a 500 gigabyte spinning hard drive in it, and I am syncing up probably at this point 200 gigabytes of data between all the machines, because there's music, there's videos, pictures, there's I have a lot of stuff that I hang on to. Packages have been installed but need restart is suspended. We're now going through the package lists again. Done, I guess, to make sure they're all there. I don't know. At some point, it's going to tell us what packages we no longer need or are no longer available. Obsolete software. There we are. Wow, how many times have I done this? I know what it's doing. I can tell you where we're at in the process. Well, go ahead. Do it. Oh my goodness, it says removing the packages can take several hours? Really? Who wrote this script? That's scary. This is not going to take several hours, guys. Several hours. That would be a gargantuan installation. A lot of libraries coming off of here. A lot of old libraries. That's another thing you can put down in the comments if you have played around with Ubuntu 24.04 in any real way on hardware. What do you think about it? What are your thoughts? Honestly, I've not been terribly impressed. We're getting rid of an old Linux kernel. Sip from the beverage. Yep, removing the kernel there. Removing Linux headers. Just looking to see what this thing is doing. I think the last time I did this, I chose not to remove anything, and then later on it said that there were all these things, you know. Let's see. To finish the upgrade, a restart is required. Here we go. Anyway, and I didn't remove all those files, and then I wondered where they came from, and people in the comments were like, you didn't remove all the files, that's why. Okay, so that machine is down, and so we're going to clear the screen here, and we'll get the SSH in. By the way, SSHN is just a little script that I use to get into machines on my network by IP address. Keeps me from having to type in the IP addresses. That's all it does. It's actually an alias, pretty much. And all I have to do is put in the last 2 digits of the IP4 address, and it'll find it. But I don't really use aliases. I don't like adding to the bash RC file that much. I like to have little stubs, so I just run them in a local bin directory. Okay, here we go. Let's try it. Moment of truth. Let's see what we get. Now this machine takes time to boot because it's old and slow and it's a spinning hard drive. So if we don't get in the first time around, it doesn't mean it didn't work. What it means is that the machine hasn't booted yet. Okay. Let's wait a little longer. Well, yeah, it's running, but it says connection refused. And that could mean that it's just not finished the boot process yet. So we'll give it another few seconds. Are we ready? Let's do it this way. Here we go. We're in. It's up and running. Wow. Crazy, man. Crazy. Let me see if I can't scroll up the screen. It's not letting me to see what it says up at the top. Or did they change this? System information as a... Or maybe they've actually changed that so it doesn't scroll off the screen. That would be nice. It's the last time we logged in. You see that? You were watching when I logged in because it happened about 20 past midnight. It is currently 20 past 1 in the morning, so this took an hour. That's how long it's taken to do this. So let's see if HTOP is still here. Yes, so I can show you the resources of the machine. As I said, it's a 2-core Atom processor, 2 gigabytes of RAM, 500 gigabytes spinning hard drive. That's it. Okay, that's working. Let's try MC. Yes, I have that. Midnight Commander. This is a file manager for the terminal. Beautiful little piece of software. And it looks like everything is supposed to be, everything that's supposed to be there is there, which is pretty cool. One of the things I love about Midnight Commander, it's DOS driven. See, look at this. But DOS-like is what I should say. It's mouse driven. I can sit here and use my mouse to do things. It's late, y'all. It's late. I'm tired. Alright, let's go ahead and quit that. So that's working. We are in. And yes, the name of the machine is Teensy because it's an itty-bitty file server. So what I want to do is exit the machine. And we're going to do this thing here, call it a Teensy Sync. Now, Teensy Sync is a script that I have written that basically takes all of the files that I want to sync up from this machine and puts it on that machine. So let's make sure this runs. And see, it's searching for the syncing files. Okay, it's doing it. And there shouldn't be any changes. That shouldn't really come up with much of anything, and it didn't. Except for, I also sync, I sync some settings, like the Google Chrome directory. This is in case this machine that I'm working on dies, and I can throw this back in place, in the proper place, and then when I fire up Google Chrome, it'll be like it was. So that's why it's syncing it syncs the cache and everything from Google Chrome. Guess what? The machine is up and running, and it is doing what I need it to do. There we go. So, let me see something here real quick. I want to see if I can scroll up. Yeah, so no, that's the way it comes out, essentially. Hold on a second. I'm trying to figure something out here. System information. Okay, so yeah, that's just scrolling off the screen. 2404 LTS.1. Kernel 6.8.0.41. Good. We're in. I love it. Okay, let me full screen that once again. Let's see if there are any orphaned packages. By the way, the up script, some of you may remember that. I typed my thing in there wrong. It's basically automating the update process for Ubuntu, and it works on Debian as well. So, there's an old video up about it somewhere. It was a script that I wrote showing people how to use functions in scripts. And people actually adapted it for use with other operating systems, and it kind of took on a life of its own. It's up on GitHub. You can go to my GitHub page. Just go to GitHub and search Easy Linux, and boom, you're right there. All my scripts are up there. They haven't been updated in quite some time. They haven't needed it, but they're all there. So, yeah, I guess I will put a link to Easy Linux on GitHub in the description. And I will put a link to the radio station down there as well if you want to go click and listen to what I'm doing here. Oh, we have an issue. It says I should try apt fix broken install. See, I'm glad I looked at that. Let's see what's broken. Let's see what that does. Well, it's going to... Okay. Okay, let's do... so you guys can see what I'm doing here. So apparently, going back and running that again, said that the following package will be removed. That's fine. Go ahead. So it said it did it. So let's go ahead and run that one more time. See if I see any more broken package calls. Okay. So yeah, a little bit of a mess left behind by the upgrade, but nothing that we weren't able to fix pretty quick. So I give this whole process a B, and the only reason it doesn't get an A is because of that. So it all worked. There was no issues. We just took the path of least resistance. Nothing had to be reconfigured. The server is still running. Everything is doing what it should do. So, cool. We're done. That's it. Thank you for hanging out with me for over an hour and listening to me ramble on about various subjects. It was fun. And if you enjoyed this video, share it with your friends, man. Bore the crap out of them. And, of course, like and subscribe and all that stuff that all the YouTube people say. Thank you for watching, boys and girls. We'll do it again somewhere down the road. Talk to you guys later.